10. Jilene Lama's viral. In December of 2023, disgraced rapper turned federal informant Tekashi 69 released disturbing videos of his ex-girlfriend, Dominican rapper and singer Jilene Lama's viral. The clips show Viral attacking him and his car during an argument outside his Miami home. The shocking footage appeared to show the 21-year-old, whose real name is Georgina Guillermo Diaz, striking 6ix9ine with her hands, hitting him with blunt objects, and kicking his car before being handcuffed and arrested for her behavior. According to a police report, the disagreement began when Viral accused 6ix9ine of looking at other women. The couple reportedly fought for days, leading to the massive blowout that was captured on video. In a social media post featuring one of the clips, 6ix9ine said that in the United States of America, men can go to jail if they hit a woman. He also posted a 20-minute video of himself explaining in Spanish that he would never hit a woman, especially because he's on probation. The rapper further claimed that he was not posting the video to create drama, but to clear his name because he was sick of being portrayed as the bad guy in the couple's contentious relationship. He also suggested that postpartum depression may have played a role in Viral's abusive behavior. During his online diatribe, 6ix9ine seemed to be alluding to the belief that Viral would get away with her actions, but she did not. Viral was charged with multiple crimes, including aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, battery, property damage, criminal mischief, and obstructing justice. She allegedly said that she wanted to leave 6ix9ine after he took away her money, passport, and phone, and she admitted to kicking his Bentley to cause him financial hardship due to his refusal to return her property. Viral posted a $9,000 bond and was released from custody pending the outcome of her case. Around the same time, her legal team released a statement saying that they believed 6ix9ine would be dropping the charges. While the outcome of the case is unclear, the on and off couple was seen vacationing together in the Dominican Republic less than a month after Viral's arrest. 9. Vanessa Cloak. In December of 2019, Walking Dead actress Vanessa Cloak noticed that someone was filming her as her ex-boyfriend moved his belongings out of her apartment in Orange County, California. In the beginning of the video, Cloak could be seen and heard shouting and crying at her boyfriend and her family as they carried boxes out of the residence following the former couple's breakup. The woman recording the video could be heard calling Cloak a drama queen, at which point the enraged actress could be seen exiting the building and charging toward her. Cloak called the woman a derogatory name and then appeared to hit her, before being handcuffed and led away by police, who were already at the scene. Officers were reportedly called to the home for the sake of preventing the situation from escalating, but their presence apparently was not enough to stop Cloak from losing her temper. Following her arrest on suspicion of misdemeanor assault and battery, Cloak spoke with TMZ. During the interview, she accused the woman who filmed her of exploiting her without knowing the full story behind what was going on. In 2020, Cloak told TV Overmind that her ex had been intimidating and harassing her prior to the move-out meltdown. She claimed that she sent him a letter several days before the incident, telling him to cease and desist from his problematic behavior. Cloak also denied allegations that she had encouraged her ex to self-harm, saying that she would never make those type of statements toward anyone, considering her own mental health struggles. The actress further accused her ex of purposefully staging a big scene on the day of the move-out, in an attempt to prey on her fear of big families and people with money. She identified the woman who was recording as her ex's sister, who she claimed had a known history of being jealous and combative. Cloak denied striking the woman, but admitted to ripping the phone out of her hand and tossing it off the balcony of the home. While the outcome of her criminal case is unclear, it's obvious that the parties involved had a history of animosity, extending beyond what was shown in the video. 8. Ariana Marie Johnston. While responding to a domestic disturbance call in Fishers, Indiana, shortly before noon one morning in September of 2023, police saw a woman fleeing from the scene on foot. Officers were met by a man who accused Ariana Marie Johnston of hitting him, stealing his belongings, and swatting his phone out of his hand while he tried calling for help. An officer chased after Johnston and attempted to arrest her, but she allegedly refused to cooperate with his orders. Police continued to pursue the woman, who was seen diving into a dumpster behind a cafe. When Johnston ignored officers' commands to exit the dumpster, they threatened to send a canine. She promised to come out, but remained in the dumpster while throwing clothing and other items out of it. Unsure whether Johnston had a weapon, the officers once again ordered her to come out of the dumpster, then tried forcibly removing her from it. According to police, Johnston resisted by flailing her arms around and pushing the cops, prompting a nearby canine officer to spring into action. She allegedly punched the dog in the head and tried biting him, but no amount of fighting was going to change the fact that she was under arrest. Police eventually subdued Johnston, who was booked into custody on suspicion of felony battery against a public safety official, 2 misdemeanor counts of resisting law enforcement, 1 misdemeanor count of striking a law enforcement animal, and misdemeanor public intoxication. The outcome of the case is unclear. 7. Lorraine Dillard. In a viral meltdown that was captured on camera in March of 2024, a passenger completely lost her cool while waiting for a Spirit Airlines flight to take off from Las Vegas at around 1 o'clock in the morning. Footage captured by a nearby traveler showed the woman, later identified as Lorraine Dillard, shouting at police officers who were trying to de-escalate the situation. She made nonsensical statements, such as, "Can I do that with freedom?" and "All I care about is freedom." According to witnesses, the tantrum began after Dillard tried biting the passenger sitting next to her. She then began cursing, growling, and snapping her teeth at other passengers. Police were brought on board the aircraft, and a Spirit Airlines supervisor told the officers that she had tried reasoning with Dillard before she resorted to calling law enforcement. The officers calmly instructed Dillard to gather her belongings and exit the aircraft, but she refused to cooperate. The freakout continued, even as the police arrested the unruly passenger, who could be heard saying, "That's fine, I've been there before," as she looked around at the plane's passengers and stared them down with a crazed look in her eyes. Dillard yelled, "I'm not scared, I've been there before." She also hurled racial slurs at one of the cops while accusing the police of being racist, then accused an officer of twisting her arm, threw her head back and screamed. All the passengers ended up having to deplane, while law enforcement subdued the disturbed traveler. Dillard was charged with violating airport rules and was released from custody pending the outcome of her case. 6. Malik McDowell. Malik McDowell's first official year as an NFL pro got off to a bad start when he got into an ATV accident and was unable to play in the 2017 season due to a concussion. Things took another bad turn a few months later when he allegedly threw a tantrum at a nightclub outside Atlanta in Chamblee, Georgia. According to the club's bouncers, McDowell accused them of stealing his money after he paid the valet $600 to park his car. But the club only took payment inside, according to its staff members, who claimed that McDowell's bill had not yet been settled when he started hurling allegations at the security guards. Despite his behavior, he was allowed back into the club briefly, before getting kicked out for pouring 2 bottles of alcohol into a bucket of ice. McDowell allegedly refused to leave peacefully, and police were called to the scene, where responding officers struggled with the 6'6" tall athlete. A police report stated that McDowell threw himself onto the ground in a fit of rage and accused an officer of stealing his money while being searched. McDowell and his friend were charged with disorderly conduct and were released on bond. Over the years, he has faced numerous criminal allegations, including DUI, assault, resisting arrest, and more. He spent a year in prison for various crimes in Michigan before returning to pro football, but only played for 1 season before running into trouble with the law again. In early 2022, police in Boca Raton, Florida, responded to a call about a man walking around naked in public. McDowell was charged with public exposure, aggravated battery of an officer, and resisting arrest. The disgraced former NFL athlete played briefly for the Duke City Gladiators before his arrest, but is currently classified as a free agent. 5. David Shepard. When 36-year-old David Shepard was told that he could not buy a bus ticket on his phone in September of 2019, he laid siege to a Greyhound station in downtown Nashville, Tennessee. During the tantrum, the enraged customer could be seen and heard hurling objects through the station's glass door and windows, trying to overturn a mobile kiosk, shouting racial slurs and other slurs at employees, attempting to kick the station's doors in, and challenging staff members to broadcast his behavior on YouTube. Despite the explosive nature of his actions, Shepard surrendered willingly to the police, who noticed a distinct odor of alcohol while talking to the suspect. Officers also noticed that Shepard's speech was slurred and that his eyes were bloodshot. He was booked into custody on charges of aggravated assault, vandalism, criminal trespassing, and public intoxication. Records showed that Shepard had a lengthy history of run-ins with the law, including dozens of past arrests in and around Nashville. He also had numerous prior convictions, including for disorderly conduct, theft, assault, public intoxication, driving with a revoked license, violating probation, and at least 4 DUI cases. 4. Carrie Corwin. In April 2017, a 25-year-old Florida woman named Carrie Corwin was accused of smashing the windshield of her boyfriend's work truck in Umatilla after he called her fat. According to the Lake County Sheriff's Office, Corwin took a tire iron to the glass, then smashed the exterior of the truck with a lawn ornament. She caused an estimated $2,350 in damages to the company vehicle. She also allegedly took a hose with a sprinkler attached and threw it into the truck through the passenger side window. Responding deputies arrived to find the tire iron lying in the middle of the road. Corwin's boyfriend accused the young woman of being drunk and also admitted to being intoxicated when fat-shaming her. During questioning, Corwin admitted to damaging the truck. She was subsequently charged with criminal mischief in excess of $1,000, and the vehicle's owner said they intended to press charges. The outcome of the case is unclear. 3. PalmerTomkinson. When British socialite and former model PalmerTomkinson threw a fit of rage inside London's Heathrow Airport in 2014, it was initially unclear why she was so upset. Some onlookers claimed that the explosive meltdown began when she was denied access to a first-class lounge. Others said that Tara lost her cool when she noticed that people were snapping photos of her, while yet another version of events claimed that the tantrum began after a man told Tara that she was unfit to fly because she was crying. Regardless of what happened, the fact that the woman flew into a fit of rage is undeniable, because her behavior was at least partially captured on camera. In one video, bystanders could be heard describing Tara as ballistic, while she argued with the police in front of them. At one point, she got so angry that she ripped out a handful of her own hair extensions and threw them at the officers. She then threw her coat and tried to run, but the police stopped her. It took 8 officers to subdue the ex-model, who was taken into custody sobbing and screaming. Tara claimed that she was not drinking during the incident, but that her outburst was triggered by an anxiety attack. It makes sense, given her history of struggling with both substance abuse and debilitating anxiety, which at one point turned her into a recluse who barely left her home. She also denied rumors that she had been charged with disorderly conduct and claimed she was let off with a warning. 2. Elazarrello. In August of 2023, a McDonald's customer was accused of throwing hot coffee on a worker in Miami Springs, Florida, during a dispute over the cost of his breakfast. According to police, 64-year-old Elazarrello flew into a rage at the restaurant's drive-thru window because he believed he was being overcharged by a single penny. Surveillance footage showed Ravello arguing with the manager, Stephanie Restuccia, then slapping a coffee cup out of her hand as she tried handing it to the disgruntled customer. The steaming hot beverage splashed onto Restuccia, who later told NBC6 Miami that she was caught off guard because she did not expect Ravello, who was a regular customer, to actually harm her. Restuccia further claimed that she intervened when she saw Ravello treating one of her employees in a seemingly abusive manner. She warned Ravello that she would ban him from the restaurant if he continued disrespecting the staff, only to end up with burns on her arms from the hot coffee. Ravello eventually turned himself in to law enforcement and was charged with felony battery. He remains free on a $5,000 bail, pending the outcome of the case.
And now for number 1. But if you want to hear more bizarre and crazy stories, stay tuned after the video for some more content.
1. Michaela Tacket. In June of 2016, 18-year-old Michaela Tacket was accused of throwing a massive temper tantrum during her shift at an Arby's restaurant in Sharonville, Ohio. The explosive incident began during an argument between Tacket and her manager, Sierra McQuarrie. According to law enforcement, Tacket began taking fries out of the fryer with boiling grease and throwing them at McQuarrie and her co-workers during the disagreement. Tacket was also accused of threatening to wreck McQuarrie's car, smashing a telephone against the floor, and threatening to slap her colleagues in the face. By the time police arrived, she had fled the scene. A responding officer called Tacket to let her know that she was fired. He sternly cautioned the young woman not to return to the property and informed her that she was facing charges for disorderly conduct and criminal damage. Just minutes after law enforcement left the scene, an Arby's employee called the police and reported that Tacket had sent them a threatening message. During police questioning, Tacket reportedly admitted to getting angry and destroying a phone inside the restaurant, but she denied threatening anyone and maintained her innocence during a subsequent interview with local station WCPO, stating that she had been inaccurately portrayed as a bad person. Tacket further stated that she was nervous because she had never been in such serious trouble. Unfortunately, updates have not been forthcoming, leaving the outcome of the case unclear.
8. Roxana Sikorsky. In 2014, an emotionally troubled teenager from Wayne County, Michigan, named Roxana Sikorsky, turned to the internet for support. She opened up to an older stranger named Michael Rivera, and the two soon began an inappropriate relationship. When Roxana's adoptive parents found out about her secret older boyfriend, they reported Rivera to the police. Shortly after law enforcement got involved, Roxana cut her brother's throat one day during the early morning hours. The victim survived, and Roxana's plan to kill her entire family was thwarted when another household member saw what was happening and screamed loudly enough to wake everyone up. It's unclear whether Rivera persuaded Roxana to commit the horrific act because of the legal problems he was facing due to their age gap, or if he and Roxana co-conspired. They were both charged in connection with the crime, and prosecutors pushed for maximum accountability despite pleas for leniency from Roxana's parents, who forgave their daughter for her actions. Rivera was convicted of his role in the murder plot and sentenced to life in prison, while Roxana begrudgingly took a plea deal and admitted to a reduced count of assault with intent to murder. She was handed a sentence of 10 to 20 years. During her sentencing hearing, Roxana stared at the floor until it was her turn to talk. She tearfully apologized to her family, struggling to get the words out between sobs, and at one point she completely broke down. She later withdrew her guilty plea. Roxana tried to get a new trial, but the appeal was eventually dropped. She continues to serve her original sentence. 7. Dylan Schumaker. When a man from Springville, New York named Dylan Schumaker lost his temper while babysitting his girlfriend's son in early 2012, the consequences were fatal to the child and life-ruining for Schumaker. During his trial for second-degree murder, Schumaker admitted that the victim's loud crying made him snap. The jury found him guilty after deliberating for just 3 hours. When Schumaker arrived in court for his sentencing, he immediately began sobbing dramatically and pleading with the audience, claiming that he didn't mean to kill the victim. His attorney urged the judge to impose the minimum sentence of 15 years to life. But Schumaker's tearful display garnered no mercy from the judge, who described the convicted killer as a manipulator. Before imposing the punishment, the judge told the court about how Schumaker stated in a jailhouse phone call to his mother that he was a 16-year-old blonde, and that all he had to do was cry in front of the jury and they would feel sorry for him. Having painted a crystal clear picture of his true colors through his own words, Schumaker was sentenced to the maximum of 25 years to life. After appealing his case, he received a reduced sentence of 18 years to life. 6. Tawan Mitchell. During the pre-dawn hours one day in January 2014, 22-year-old Tawan Mitchell and his friend Dion Dorsey fatally shot 29-year-old Marcus Waters at the victim's home in DeKalb County, Georgia. Prosecutors claimed that the suspects committed the senseless act because they wanted to get their hands on some marijuana. Both men were charged with murder, and Mitchell was released on an ankle bracelet pending the outcome of the case. He was found guilty more than 2.5 years later in October 2016. Shortly after being convicted and awaiting his sentencing hearing, Mitchell removed his ankle monitor and escaped the state. He was apprehended in South Carolina and remained in custody until his ultimate court date, during which he had a chance to address his actions. Clutching a wad of tissues, Mitchell cried as he apologized for his crimes and for making the situation even worse by attempting to flee. He claimed that he was trying to visit his grandmother in North Carolina and blamed his difficult upbringing for how he turned out, describing how he bounced from one place to the next following his mother's death when he was a teen. As someone who grew up in an inner city and faced her own challenges during her youth, the judge was unmoved by Mitchell's tearful explanation. She emphasized how Mitchell's choices played a role in where he ended up, and that his circumstances were not purely to blame, as she handed down a life sentence plus 40 years. 5. Lauren Pazienza. In one of the most high-profile criminal cases to make New York headlines in recent years, an 87-year-old retired vocal coach named Barbara Meyer Gustern was mercilessly shoved to the ground on a Manhattan sidewalk by a stranger in early 2022. For no apparent reason, Gustern's assailant charged her from behind, causing the senior citizen to smack her head against the concrete while she waited for a taxi to go see one of her students perform. While waiting for emergency responders with a huge bleeding gash in her head, Gustern told a friend that she'd never been hit so hard in her life. Police arrived just in time to get a description of the attacker before she fell unconscious. She was rushed to the hospital, where doctors treated her for brain trauma and fought to save her life, but she died from her injuries. 2 weeks later, Gustern's attacker, 26-year-old Lauren Pazienza, turned herself into authorities and was charged with manslaughter. While her motive for shoving Gustern remained unclear, the defendant was accused of calling Gustern a bitch right before she pushed the woman to the ground. Pazienza denied the name-calling allegation and repeatedly showed an inability or perhaps a refusal to take responsibility for her actions. She gave numerous inconsistent stories about her role in the unprovoked attack and even tried claiming that she accidentally ran into Gustern. Despite her varying accounts of what happened, Pazienza eventually decided to give up her attempts to minimize her role in the tragedy and pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter. She was expected to receive an 8-year prison sentence, but was hit with an additional 6 months by the judge, who tore into the defendant for her multiple failures to own her actions. Pazienza sobbed at her sentencing, but seemed to only feel sorry for herself. She spat out a 10-second apology before being nudged by her lawyer to say more. During her second attempt at acting remorseful, the convicted killer said that she should have never pushed anybody and that she was so sorry. Given her behavior all along throughout the case, it's understandably hard for many to believe that she was being genuine. But it was the best the court was going to get from Pazienza, who began serving her sentence in October 2023. She'll become eligible for parole in the year 2029, but could remain behind bars until November of 2030. 4. Martin Shkreli. Martin Shkreli, better known to many as the Farmer Bro, made headlines for his cocky attitude and smart aleck mouth even before his arrest in early 2015 for financial crimes. And unlike many who humble themselves in order to save face after being nabbed by the authorities, the Brooklyn-based entrepreneur only dialed up his obnoxious behavior following his arrest. The widely despised Farmer Bro made enemies with the general public in 2014 after obtaining the sole rights to manufacture a life-saving HIV drug, Daraprim, and raising the cost by 5,000%. While he faced no criminal charges related to the Daraprim controversy, his unapologetic response to public outrage, coupled with the price hike, undoubtedly harmed his reputation. To make matters worse, Shkreli was accused of starting his pharmaceutical company using money from 2 failed hedge funds, bilking investors out of tens of millions of dollars, and leading to federal charges for 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of conspiracy. He was convicted on all counts in late 2017. After the hearing, Shkreli told reporters that he was delighted with the outcome of the case, which he described as a witch hunt of epic proportions. Shkreli was singing a different tune just months later when he pleaded with the judge for leniency as he wept during his sentencing hearing. Through tears, he said that he was never motivated by money to commit his crimes. And while his emotions weren't as dramatic as some of the other displays mentioned in today's list, Shkreli's sheepish behavior stood in stark contrast to the bratty demeanor that he'd clung to right up until that day. Despite his past antics, the tears seemed to somewhat work. The judge overseeing the case remarked that Shkreli seemed genuinely remorseful about his egregious multitude of lies, but criticized him for repeatedly minimizing his actions. Shkreli was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. After unsuccessfully appealing his case, he applied for compassionate release during the COVID-19 pandemic, claiming that his pharmaceutical company needed him to develop a remedy to the virus. The judge denied the request, describing it as yet another act of delusional, self-aggrandizing behavior, and Shkreli remained locked up until May of 2022, when he was transferred to a halfway house. He's since completed all his legal requirements and has kept a relatively low profile since then, living a much quieter lifestyle than he did before he fell off his high horse. 3. Zachary Rell. Members of a far-right neo-fascist militant organization called the Proud Boys played a significant role in the US Capitol riot on January 6, 2021. Following the insurrection, federal authorities arrested the organization's Philadelphia chapter leader, Zachary Rell, for leading an enraged mob toward the Capitol. During his trial, Rell claimed to have no memory of several things that he was accused of doing, and that there was evidence of, including spattering members of law enforcement with an unnamed chemical. The court also heard about how Rell acted unremorsefully after the riot and before his arrest, describing the attack on the Capitol as a good start to taking the country back the right way. Rell was found guilty of seditious conspiracy, with the defense advocating for a maximum 3-year prison term and the prosecution pushing for 30 years. A compromise led to Rell being sentenced to 15 years in prison. The presiding judge concluded that Rell committed perjury and added a terrorism enhancement to his charges. However, this enhancement was weakened by the absence of significant loss of life resulting from Rell's actions. As of September 2023, among riot suspects awaiting trial, Rell's 15-year sentence ranks as the 3rd longest in connection with the Capitol attack. Despite the substantial sentence, U.S. District Judge Timothy Kelly expressed dismay at his decision, questioning aloud whether he would ever again impose such a lenient punishment, given that it was 15 years below both the recommended guidelines and the prosecution's recommendation. But the judge's generosity didn't stop Rell from bawling his eyes out as he told the court that he became consumed by politics in the lead-up to the riot. He described the January 6th insurrection as a despicable day, as he vowed to be done with politics, choking out his words between sobs and deep breaths. Hopefully, his remorse was genuine, and it was the last time he'll land himself in federal court for alleged crimes against his own country. 2. Dominic Pena. In case you haven't noticed, a lot of the defendants who committed brazen acts of rebellion during the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot in Washington, D.C. have acted a lot less bold when it comes to facing criminal charges for their actions. Included among this growing number of tough guys turned timid is former Proud Boy Dominic Pena, who was accused of smashing a Capitol window with a stolen police riot shield. The 46-year-old was acquitted of seditious conspiracy, but found guilty of assaulting, resisting, or impeding a police officer, robbery of government property, and destruction of government property. Pena wept as he pleaded with the judge for leniency during his sentencing hearing in September 2023, describing his participation in the riot as the worst, most regrettable decision of his life. He also claimed that he stood before the court as a changed and humbled man, while giving himself a verbal pat on the back for taking responsibility for his actions and admitting to his wrongdoings. Penza was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, but any expressions of remorse or turning over a new leaf that he expressed during the hearing became highly questionable when he raised his fist in the air and yelled "Trump won" while being led out of the courtroom. He was one of several defendants who expressed their support for Trump while leaving court after their sentencing, and it's enough to raise doubt over whether certain rioters truly regret their actions. 1. Carl Krueger. Former New York State Senator Carl Krueger's career was upended in 2010 when he fell under federal investigation for allegedly offering political favors in exchange for campaign contributions. In 2011, he was indicted along with 7 others for allegedly accepting at least $1 million worth of bribes over a decade-long period. In federal court, Krueger eventually confessed to accepting sufficient bribes to finance his $2 million waterfront mansion in Brooklyn's upscale Mill Basin area, along with the Bentley parked in its driveway. Notably, he tearfully pleaded guilty to 2 counts of conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud, as well as 2 counts of bribery conspiracy. The situation was described by New York Times journalist William Glaberson as humiliating, highlighting Krueger's tear-soaked tissues during his emotional breakdown at the defense table. Despite the cringe-inducing display, it was understandable given that the defendant was potentially facing up to 50 years in prison. However, the judge's surprisingly lenient decision should have transformed Krueger's tears into tears of joy, as he received a sentence of only 7 years behind bars, a fraction of the maximum term. Records show that Krueger was released from prison in 2018 after serving roughly 6 years. In the years since, he's occasionally been spotted in public, including at community meetings. He's also been accused of throwing tantrums during these meetings, but has managed to avoid any further legal trouble.
Thanks for watching. Would you rather go viral for someone secretly recording you having a meltdown, or go viral for punching someone who did nothing wrong in the face? Tell us which one would be worse in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you soon.